A hungry little girl in tears begs a young billionaire to save her mother. When he arrives at the hospital, he is shocked to find out who she is. The rain fell mercilessly over New York that night. The heavy drops pounded against the asphalt, forming small rivers along the sidewalks of the city that never sleeps. Amid that scene, a tiny figure ran desperately through the drenched streets. Emily, only 5 years old, pushed forward through the storm. Her dress, once pink, was now grayish and clung to her thin body. The worn-out shoes exposed her small feet to the icy water running down the streets. Her brown hair, completely soaked, stuck to her pale face. "I need to find help," she repeated to herself while her green eyes scanned the avenue. "Mommy needs me." A few blocks ahead, a sleek black limousine stopped at a red light. Inside, Jack Thompson adjusted his bow tie, still thinking about the charity event he had just left. At 35, the billionaire had everything money could buy, yet something always seemed to be missing. "To the Four Seasons, Frank," he said to the driver, looking absent-mindedly through the foggy window. That was when he heard a soft tapping on the glass. Turning, he saw a pair of green eyes staring at him, a child's eyes, but with a depth not typical of someone so young. Frank turned around, concerned. "Sir, should I—" Jack hesitated only for a second before lowering the window, letting in the wind and rain that invaded the cozy interior of the vehicle. "Please, sir," Emily's trembling voice pleaded. "My mum is very sick. They're going to send her away from the hospital." The man observed the little girl closely. Her cheeks, which should have been plump, were sunken, her arms too thin for a child her age, yet her eyes shone with fierce determination. "What's your name?" Jack asked, keeping his voice calm. "Emily, sir. Emily Collins." The girl was shivering but kept her gaze fixed. "The hospital said they can't take care of my mom anymore if we don't pay. She needs a heart doctor." Jack looked at his gala attire, at the luxurious limousine interior with its leather seats and half-finished champagne. He had just donated $10,000 to some cause that night. He couldn't even remember exactly which one. And now this soaked child was knocking on his window asking for help. "Where is your mother, Emily?" "At the Bronx Central Hospital, sir, please, and she's all I have." Frank glanced in the rearview mirror, clearly uncomfortable. "Mr. Thompson, your appointment at the hotel." Jack raised a hand, silencing the driver. There was something in that child's eyes, a sincerity he rarely saw in his world of business and social events. "Get in, Emily," he said, opening the door. "Let's go see your mother." The girl hesitated only for an instant before climbing inside. She sat at the edge of the leather seat, aware of the water dripping from her clothes onto the car's immaculate interior. "To the Bronx Central Hospital, Frank," Jack ordered. Emily looked around, her eyes wide. Her small, dirty hands stood in stark contrast to the Italian leather seats. She looked even smaller inside that luxurious space, like a fallen bird in a palace. "How long has your mom been sick?" Jack asked, offering a towel from the minibar. Emily accepted the towel carefully. "She's been tired for a long time, but last week she fell and couldn't get up. I called the neighbors, and they called an ambulance." While the girl spoke, Jack noticed signs of hardship: dirty fingernails, unevenly cut hair, worn-out clothes. It wasn't neglect from lack of love, he realized, but from lack of resources. "And your father?" he asked gently. Emily lowered her gaze. "I don't have a dad. It's just me and Mommy." The limousine moved through the streets, leaving Manhattan's glow behind and entering the city's poorer areas. The rain continued without mercy. "How old are you, Emily?" 5.5, she replied with a pride that made Jack smile. "And you came all alone to Manhattan to look for help?" The girl nodded. "Mommy taught me how to ride the subway for emergencies. I memorized the map." Her chin trembled slightly. "But today I had no money for the fare, so I had to jump over the turnstile when nobody was looking." Jack felt a lump in his throat. A 5-year-old crossing New York alone during a storm, sneaking onto the subway to save her mother. "You were very brave," he said simply. Emily shrugged as if it were no big deal. I promised Mommy I'd take care of her. The car finally stopped in front of the hospital. It was an old, poorly maintained building, nothing like the private clinics Jack was used to. "Let's go," he said, grabbing his umbrella. "Show me where your mum is." As they got out of the car, Emily held his hand firmly. Her tiny, cold hand in his big, warm one formed an unexpected bond. Jack felt a strange certainty growing inside him. He would help this child and her mother, no matter what it cost. What he didn't know as they walked into the hospital was that his life was about to change forever. The limousine pulled up in front of the Bronx Central Hospital. Rain was still pouring, forming puddles in the cracked sidewalk. Jack looked out the window and frowned. The old concrete building, with dirty windows and a poorly lit entrance, looked more like a horror movie set than a place for medical care. "This is it, sir," said Emily, already opening the door. "Hurry, please." Frank, the driver, gave Jack a worried look. "Mr. Thompson, are you sure this place doesn't look safe?" "Wait here," Jack ordered. "I'm not sure how long I'll be." Jack stepped out, trying to shield Emily with his umbrella. Together they crossed the hospital entrance, where the automatic doors squeaked as they opened only partially. The strong smell of disinfectant mixed with mold hit Jack immediately. The lobby was crowded, people coughing in broken plastic chairs, a child crying in her mother's arms, a man with a bandaged head dozing against the wall. Flickering fluorescent lights made the place even more depressing. "This way," Emily tugged at Jack's coat sleeve, guiding him away from the crowded reception area. "Shouldn't we check in?" Jack asked, confused at how easily they were passing through. "I come here every day," Emily explained. "They already know me. Plus, security is always busy dealing with emergency arrivals at the back entrance." Jack followed the small girl, impressed with her knowledge of the place. Emily led him down a side hallway, avoiding the main area. The corridor was partially dark, with some burned-out bulbs. Empty gurneys and old equipment were piled to the sides. "The elevator's been broken since Tuesday," Emily said as they passed one with an out-of-service sign taped to the doors. "We have to use the stairs." In the stairwell, the smell of urine was strong, and Jack saw suspicious stains on the steps. The walls were covered in graffiti and peeling at various spots. Emily climbed quickly, clearly used to this route. "How do you know this place so well?" Jack asked, trying to keep up. "My mum stayed here twice before," Emily answered without looking back. "Sometimes I came with her when she needed tests." Upon reaching the third floor, Emily stopped and pointed to a sign that read, "Cardiology, rooms 300-315. Mum's in 307. She shares it with 3 other people." The floor wasn't much better than the staircase. At the nurse's station, a single nurse looked overwhelmed, answering phones and organizing medication. Several patients walked the corridor in faded gowns, dragging IV poles. "Miss Ramirez," Emily called to the nurse, who looked up, exhausted. "Emily, dear," the nurse answered in a soft Spanish accent. "Visiting hours are over." "I know, but I brought someone to help Mom," Emily said, pointing to Jack. The nurse looked at Jack with surprise, noticing his obviously expensive, rain-soaked tuxedo. "I'd like to speak with the doctor in charge of Sarah Collins," Jack said, adopting his usual commanding tone. "Dr. Martinez is on duty, but it's an emergency," Jack interrupted, pulling a business card from his wallet. "Jack Thompson. Tell him it's about covering Ms. Collins's treatment costs." The nurse's eyes widened upon recognizing the name. In her world, billionaires didn't usually show up drenched in public hospitals in the Bronx. "One moment, Mr. Thompson." As the nurse made the call, Emily was already tugging Jack down the hallway. "Let's see Mom first. Her room is this way." Jack hesitated. "Shouldn't we wait for the doctor?" "Mom will be happy to see I found help," Emily insisted. "She's so worried." Room 307 had 4 beds separated only by thin curtains. The air was stuffy, and an old TV on the wall broadcast a talk show with the volume turned down low. Of the 4 beds, 3 were occupied. An elderly lady slept, a middle-aged man flipped through a magazine, and in the last bed, "Mom!" Emily ran to the bed in the corner. Jack followed the child and felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. Lying in that hospital bed was Sarah Montgomery. Her face, once so full of life, now looked pale and drawn. Her red hair had lost its shine. A nasal cannula supplied her with oxygen, and various machines at her bedside monitored her vital signs. Like a movie, memories from 6 years ago flooded his mind. The last time he'd seen her was at that Italian restaurant she loved, overlooking Central Park. He had reserved the best table and ordered the best champagne. The engagement ring burned in his pocket, but Sarah seemed distant that night. "I need some time, Jack," she said after he placed their order. "There are things you don't know about me, decisions I need to make on my own." He insisted they could work through any problem together. She promised to call the next day, but that call never came. She simply vanished. Apartment emptied, phone number cancelled, emails unanswered, as if she had been wiped off the face of the earth. And now, 6 years later, here she was. "Look who I brought, Mom," said Emily, holding Sarah's hand. "A rich man who's going to help us." Sarah opened her eyes slowly. First, she saw her daughter and gave a weak smile. Then her gaze moved to the figure behind Emily, and her smile froze. "Jack?" It came out like a whisper, barely audible. Her eyes, still that deep green he remembered, widened in shock. The heart monitor next to her began beeping more rapidly. "Sarah," was all Jack could say, his mind still processing this unexpected reunion. "You two know each other?" Emily asked, looking back and forth in confusion. Before anyone could answer, the door opened, and a middle-aged doctor rushed in. He wore a worn lab coat over wrinkled clothes, with deep circles under his eyes that hinted at many hours on duty. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Dr. Martinez. Nurse Ramirez said you're interested in Ms. Collins's case." Jack needed a moment to tear his gaze away from Sarah. "Yes," he replied, trying to regain composure. "I want to know exactly what her situation is and how I can help." The doctor looked at Sarah, still staring at Jack in shock, then at Emily, who watched everything with curiosity. "Perhaps we can talk outside," the doctor suggested. "No," Sarah said, her voice weak but resolute. "He can know everything. He's an old friend." "Doctor." Martinez nodded and consulted the chart in his hands. "Ms. Collins has a severe cardiomyopathy. It's in an advanced stage, and she needs a complex cardiac surgery that, unfortunately, we can't perform here. And her insurance—" "Don't worry about costs," Jack interrupted. "I want to know exactly what she needs and how we can fix this as soon as possible." While the doctor detailed Sarah's condition, Jack couldn't fully divert his attention from her. So many questions ran through his mind. Why had she disappeared? Why was she showing up now, sick with a little daughter? Emily, sitting on the edge of her mother's bed, looked at Jack with hope. Her green eyes, so much like Sarah's, or were they like his too? Jack quickly did the math. Sarah had vanished 6 years ago. Emily was 5.5. "I'll arrange an immediate transfer to New York Presbyterian," Jack decided, cutting off the doctor's technical explanation. "And I want the best cardiologists on this." Sarah tried to sit up, visibly agitated. "Jack, you don't have to. Please, Miss Collins," Dr. Martinez interjected, adjusting her pillow. "Don't exert yourself." "We need to talk, Sarah," Jack said softly, lowering his voice. "But first, let's take care of your health." Their eyes met again, and Jack saw fear in hers. Not just fear of the illness, but fear of him, of the questions that would follow, the explanations she'd have to give. Emily looked from one to the other, trying to understand what was happening. "Are you really going to help my mommy?" she asked, her small voice breaking the silence. Jack looked at the little girl, who might well be, almost certainly was, his daughter, and felt something break inside him. "Yes, Emily," he replied firmly, "I will help your mother, and you both won't have to worry about anything anymore." "Dr. Martinez, I need to see her complete medical file," Jack said, regaining his commanding tone. I want to understand exactly what we're dealing with. The doctor hesitated. Mr. Thompson, technically we need the patient's authorization to... It's okay, Sarah interrupted weakly. He can see. Dr. Martinez handed Jack a battered folder containing tests and reports. As he flipped through the pages, the seriousness of the situation became clear. Medical terms stood out like red flags: dilated cardiomyopathy, severely reduced ejection fraction, compromised ventricular function. From what I gather, she needs a transplant, Jack concluded, looking up from the documents. Ideally, yes, the doctor confirmed. But first we need to stabilize her. A ventricular assist device may be necessary as a bridge until we find a compatible donor, but we don't have resources for that here. Jack made a quick decision. I'll arrange an immediate transfer to New York Presbyterian. Can you prepare the paperwork? As the doctor left to organize the transfer, Jack approached the bed. Emily was still holding her mother's hand, her eyes following every movement. Emily, how have you been taking care of your mother? Jack asked kindly. The girl shrugged, as though it was nothing. I wake up early and make breakfast. Mommy taught me how to use the microwave and the stove if I'm careful. Then I give her medicine and help her get dressed when she's really tired. What about school? I don't go to school yet, Emily replied. Mommy teaches me at home. I can already read and count to 100. Jack smiled, impressed by her competence. Where do you live? In a small apartment near the subway station, said Emily. It's cramped, but there's a big window where we can see the sky. When it rains, sometimes water comes in, but we put out buckets. Sarah watched the conversation through half-closed eyes, clearly fighting to stay conscious. She takes care of the neighbors too, Emily continued proudly. Mrs. Patel has 6 kids, and Mommy looks after the baby when she needs to work. And Mr. Rodriguez, Wanan, who is old. Mommy reads letters for him because he can't see well. Jack felt a tug in his chest. Sarah had always been generous at heart, even while facing her own struggles. Jack, Sarah called weakly, we don't need charity, we'll manage. This isn't charity, Sarah, he answered firmly. You need specialized treatment. We're old friends, remember? Let me help. Dr. Martinez returned with forms. The ambulance will be here in 15 minutes. I've already spoken to New York Presbyterian, and they're preparing everything for her arrival. Jack signed the transfer papers and stepped into the hallway to make some calls. His personal assistant picked up on the first ring. Robert, I need you to mobilize Dr. Chen's team immediately. Yes, the cardiologist. Tell her it's a personal emergency. I also want the best private room available at New York Presbyterian with 24-hour nursing. He made 3 more calls, reaching contacts at the hospital and ensuring Sarah would receive top priority care. In less than 10 minutes, he had assembled an elite medical team waiting for them. When he returned to the room, paramedics were already preparing Sarah for transport. Emily watched everything wide-eyed, clutching the small, battered backpack she had brought with her. You're coming with us in the ambulance, Jack said, holding out his hand to her. In the ambulance, Sarah was hooked up to portable monitors while Emily sat next to Jack, facing her mother's stretcher. As soon as the doors closed and the vehicle began to move, Sarah opened her eyes. Why are you doing this, Jack? She asked, her voice a bit steadier now that she was receiving supplemental oxygen. Jack looked at her, so many questions in his mind, but he decided it wasn't the right time. We need to focus on your recovery first. The past can wait. Sarah seemed both relieved and worried. I never thought we'd meet like this. Neither did I, Jack replied. But I'm glad Emily found me. She's an amazing child. She's everything to me, Sarah whispered, looking lovingly at her daughter, who was distracted by the view from the ambulance window. Look, it's the Empire State Building, Emily exclaimed, pointing out the window, her face lit up with excitement. Jack leaned over to see. Yes, it is. Have you ever been up there? Emily shook her head. Never. Mommy said we'd go someday when we had money. Well, once your mom gets better, we can visit, Jack suggested, moved by the child's enthusiasm. Really? Emily's eyes sparkled. "Do you promise?" "I promise," Jack said, noticing the worried look Sarah gave them. Emily continued pointing out buildings and asking questions about each one. Jack realized her knowledge of the city's landmarks came only from books. While he answered her questions, he made another quick call. "Karen, I need you to prepare some things. A 5-year-old girl will be staying at the hospital with her mother. Bring appropriate clothing, child size, and some toys, books, and yes, leave them in the room. And real food, not that hospital stuff. Thank you." As he spoke, he watched the interaction between mother and daughter. Sarah, even half-conscious, reached out for Emily, who held her hand firmly. There was a deep bond between them, forged by hardships he could hardly imagine. "Your daughter reminds me of you," Jack told Sarah when he hung up. A look of alarm passed over Sarah's face, but Jack continued calmly. "She has your determination. Crossing the city alone in a storm. It's something you would have done." Sarah relaxed a bit. "She's braver than I ever was." "And you care for others, even when you can barely care for yourself. Some things never change, do they?" Jack said with a hint of a sad smile. The look they exchanged carried a weight of unspoken history, but Jack didn't push. There would be time for questions later. The ambulance turned a corner, and the imposing New York Presbyterian building appeared, illuminated against the nighttime sky. It was a stark contrast to the rundown hospital in the Bronx. "Wow!" Emily exclaimed. "Is that a hospital?" "It looks like a castle." "It's one of the best hospitals in the world," Jack explained. "Your mum will get the best care here." "How much will it cost?" Emily suddenly worried. "Mommy always says we can't spend money on anything that isn't absolutely necessary." "Don't worry about that," Jack reassured her. "Think of it as a gift from an old friend of your mum's." As the ambulance pulled into the hospital's emergency bay, Jack could see a medical team already waiting, led by Dr. Chen, the top cardiologist on the East Coast. His resolve grew stronger. He would do whatever it took to save Sarah, because it was the right thing to do, because she had once meant so much to him, and because Emily deserved to have her mother healthy by her side. The ambulance stopped at the New York Presbyterian Hospital's emergency entrance. Unlike the Bronx Hospital, everything here ran with military precision. A team was already waiting at the entrance, led by a middle-aged Asian woman with a firm posture and sharp gaze. "Mr. Thompson," she greeted him, as paramedics transferred Sarah to a hospital gurney. "I'm Dr. Amanda Chen." "Thank you for coming so quickly, Doctor," Jack said, helping Emily out of the ambulance. "Who's the little one?" Dr. Chen asked with a kind smile. "Emily," Jack replied, "the patient's daughter." The doctor crouched to Emily's level. "Hello, Emily. I'm going to take care of your mum, okay? She's in good hands." Emily just nodded, clinging to Jack's hand while watching her mother being wheeled inside. Inside the hospital, the contrast to the previous place couldn't have been greater. Wide, well-lit hallways, state-of-the-art equipment, a large, attentive staff. Sarah was taken directly for testing, while Jack filled out the necessary paperwork, with Emily seated quietly by his side. "We'll need to run some tests right away," Dr. Chen explained when she returned. "Based on the transferred records, her situation is severe. We need to accurately assess the extent of the cardiac damage." "Do whatever is necessary," Jack responded. "Money is no object," the doctor nodded. "I'll also place her on the priority list for a transplant. With your influence, Mr. Thompson, we can speed up the process, but we'll still rely on finding a compatible donor." The following hours were a flurry of tests and procedures: echocardiogram, catheterization, CT scans, cardiac MRI, each one confirming what they already knew. Sarah's heart was failing rapidly. Jack arranged for a luxurious private room where Emily could stay with her mother. By the time Sarah was finally transferred there, it was past midnight. The little girl, exhausted by the day's events, fell asleep almost immediately in a chair next to the bed. Jack watched Emily sleep. With her face relaxed in slumber, the similarities became more obvious. She had the same shape of nose as his, the same determined chin he saw in the mirror every morning. How had he not realized it immediately? Sitting there in the silence of the hospital room, his mind drifted back to their college days. He had been in his final year of business administration at Columbia when he met Sarah at the campus cafe. She was studying literature, always carrying more books than she could hold, and had the most genuine smile he had ever seen. Jack smiled at the memory. Sarah was different from all the girls from wealthy families his mother had tried to introduce him to. Sarah had strong opinions, ambitious dreams, and a worldview that fascinated him. She wanted to be a teacher, open a school for underprivileged kids, truly make a difference. They dated for almost 3 years. Those were the best years of his life, though his family never approved. Sarah came from a middle-class family in Michigan, without important connections or a fortune. Jack's mother, Victoria Thompson, made her disapproval clear at every opportunity. Even so, he planned to propose. He had the ring reserved her favorite restaurant. "Mr. Thompson," Jack snapped out of his thoughts. Dr. Chen stood at the door. "We have the test results," she said quietly, not to wake Emily. "Can we talk in the hallway?" Jack followed her outside. "Her condition is more serious than we initially thought," the doctor explained bluntly. "Her cardiac function is at only 15% of normal. We need a transplant, but while we wait for a donor, I recommend implanting a ventricular assist device." "What exactly is that?" Jack asked. "It's a mechanical pump to help the heart circulate blood. It serves as a bridge to a transplant," Dr. Chen explained. "It's invasive, but it's her best chance to survive until we find a compatible heart." "What are the risks?" "Infection, bleeding, clots. But the biggest risk is doing nothing. Without the device, I'd give her weeks, maybe days." Jack nodded, feeling the weight of the decision. "When can you do the surgery?" "Tomorrow morning." "I've already mobilized the team and reserved the operating room. Do whatever it takes, doctor." And Jack hesitated. "That little girl has already lost so much. Don't let her lose her mother too." Dr. Chen placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "I'll do my best, Mr. Thompson." When Jack returned to the room, he found Emily awake, looking anxiously at the door. "You didn't leave," she said, relief evident in her voice. "Of course not," Jack replied, sitting beside her. "I was just talking to the doctor about helping your mom." Emily looked at Sarah, who slept under sedation, hooked up to multiple monitors. "Will she be okay?" Jack hesitated, not wanting to lie to the child. "The doctors here are the best. They're going to do everything they can." Emily nodded as if that were enough for now. "Mommy always says it's important to have hope." "Your mother is very wise," Jack said, noticing how Emily's eyes, though green like Sarah's, had tiny brown flecks, exactly like his. "How did you meet my mom?" Emily asked suddenly. Jack smiled. "We met in college. She was carrying a huge pile of books, so tall she couldn't see where she was going. She bumped into me and dropped them all." Emily giggled quietly. "That sounds like Mom. She always carries more books than she can hold." I helped her pick them up and then invited her for a coffee. Jack drifted into the memory for a moment. She was the smartest and kindest person I'd ever met. "Why did you stop being friends?" Emily's innocent question jolted him back to reality. "Sometimes people go different ways," he answered vaguely, "even when they care a lot about each other." Emily seemed to accept the explanation. Her eyes began to feel heavy again. "Are you sleepy?" Jack asked. She nodded. "But I want to stay awake in case Mommy needs me." "I'll be here," Jack promised. "You can sleep." Emily hesitated. "Promise you won't leave." "I promise." Satisfied, the girl settled back into the chair. Jack took a blanket a nurse had left and carefully covered Emily. Within minutes, she was fast asleep. Jack turned his attention to Sarah. Even pale and frail, connected to tubes and monitors, he could still see the young woman he had once loved. What could have happened for her to vanish like that? Why hide Emily's existence? At dawn, Dr. Chen returned to explain the procedure's details. Jack listened carefully, asking questions about the surgery, recovery, and prognosis. "It's our best option," the doctor concluded. "With the device, she'll have time while we wait for a donor heart." "Do whatever it takes," Jack said. "Cost is not an issue." Sarah would be taken to surgery in 2 hours. Jack knew he needed to explain to Emily what would happen, but first he called his office, cancelling all his appointments for the next few days. His financial empire could wait. Now his priority was the woman he had once loved, and the little girl who was, he was almost certain, his daughter. The hours leading up to Sarah's surgery were tense. Jack stayed in the room, working remotely on his laptop while watching Emily, who refused to leave her mother's side. The girl adjusted Sarah's pillow, helped nurses offer water, and told stories to her mother even when she seemed unresponsive. Sarah drifted between moments of consciousness and long periods of unconsciousness, the effect of medication and her worsening condition. Whenever she awoke, her eyes immediately searched for Emily, as if afraid her daughter might disappear. During one of those brief moments, Jack took Emily to the hospital cafeteria to make sure she ate something. The girl was reluctant, but Jack convinced her, saying they could bring something for Sarah as well. "Your mom will need strength for the surgery," he explained. In the cafeteria, while Emily nibbled on a sandwich, Jack took the opportunity to learn more about her life. "What is your day-to-day life like?" he asked casually. Emily shrugged. "Normal, I guess. Mommy works a lot. She has 3 different jobs." "3?" Jack couldn't hide his surprise. "She cleans offices really early in the morning, before I wake up. Then she works at the public library in the afternoon. And 3 nights a week, she waits tables at a restaurant." Emily spoke as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "And you stay by yourself when she works?" "Sometimes, but usually Mrs. Patel looks after me, or I go to the library with Mommy. They have lots of books there." Her eyes lit up. "Mommy teaches me to read the harder ones." "You said you don't go to school yet," Jack noted. "Most kids your age are in kindergarten or 1st grade." "Mommy says I'm advanced for my age," Emily said proudly. "She used to be a teacher, you know, before I was born. She teaches me math, history, and science. I can read better than many older kids." Jack was impressed. Sarah had always wanted to be a teacher. Apparently, she had realized that dream through her daughter. "Our apartment is small," Emily continued, "but Mommy made a bookshelf out of old boxes. We have more than 100 books. Some she bought at thrift stores, others the library patrons were going to throw away, and Mommy rescued them." The picture Emily painted was one of poverty, but also of love and dedication. Jack felt a mixture of admiration for Sarah and anger at himself for not having been there, though he hadn't known. "Our neighbor, Mr. Rodriguez, teaches me Spanish, and Mrs. Kim from the corner store teaches me to count in Korean." Emily smiled. "Mommy says our building is like a tiny school for me." When they returned to the room, they found Sarah awake, visibly anxious. "Emily," she called weakly, reaching out her hand. The girl ran to her mother's side, handing her a small yogurt they'd brought from the cafeteria. "Look, I got your favorite." Sarah smiled faintly, but her eyes searched for Jack. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Alone?" Emily looked hesitant to leave them, but a nurse appeared at that moment. "Emily, honey, how about helping me set up a few things for your mom?" Once alone, Sarah tried to sit up, but she was too weak. "Jack," she whispered, "if something happens to me—" "Nothing will happen," he cut her off. "You're in the best hospital with the best doctors." "Even so," Sarah insisted, "promise me you'll take care of Emily." Jack sat on the edge of the bed, holding her hand. "Sarah, what's going on? Why did you vanish like that?" "All these years, I can't explain everything now," she said, her voice barely audible. "I just need to know Emily will be safe." "Of course I'll take care of her," Jack promised. "But she... He couldn't finish the question. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Jack, please, look after her. Don't let anything bad happen to her. Promise me." I promise, he said firmly. I'll protect her with my life if I have to. Sarah closed her eyes, as if a great weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Thank you, she murmured, before drifting off to sleep again. Jack remained there, holding her hand, more convinced than ever that his suspicion was correct. Emily had to be his daughter. The timing lined up. The physical resemblances were undeniable, and Sarah's desperation to secure the girl's future. Dr. Chen entered, interrupting his thoughts. We're ready to take her to surgery, she said. We've prepared everything for the device implantation. How long will it take? 4 to 6 hours, if everything goes well, the doctor answered. It's a complex procedure. What are her chances? Dr. Chen hesitated. Given her condition, I'd say there's a 70% chance of success. Without the surgery, almost zero. Jack nodded. Do whatever it takes. I want the best team, the best equipment. Cost doesn't matter. We've already arranged all of that, Mr. Thompson. You signed the paperwork for full coverage last night. Emily returned with the nurse, carrying her smaller, worn backpack. As the orderlies came in to prepare Sarah for transport, the girl sat next to Jack. Mom will be okay, right? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. The doctors will do everything they can, Jack said, putting an arm around her thin shoulders. And your mom is strong. She has so much to live for. He looked meaningfully at Emily. She has you. The girl opened her backpack and took out a small photo album with a worn, synthetic leather cover. Mom always brings this when we go anywhere. She says these are important memories. Jack took the album curiously. Emily flipped through the pages, showing pictures of herself at different ages. Newborn, 1-year-old, 3 years old. There were only a few pictures, as if each was too precious to waste. That's Mommy holding me for the first time, Emily said, pointing to a photo in which Sarah looked exhausted but radiant with a baby in her arms. Jack felt a lump in his throat. He should have been there. Emily kept turning pages until reaching an older section. These are from before I was born. Mommy was happy. The photos showed a younger Sarah, full of life. Then Jack saw it, a picture he himself had taken, of Sarah sitting under a tree on the university campus, surrounded by books, smiling for the camera. And on the next page, a photo of them together, hugging in front of Lincoln Center after a concert. Who's that with Mommy? Emily asked, looking at Jack. Before Jack could answer, Dr. Chen returned with the team to take Sarah. Emily quickly put the album away and ran to kiss her mother. I love you, Mommy, she whispered in Sarah's ear. I'll be right here when you come back. Jack watched the scene, heart aching. As Sarah's bed was wheeled toward the surgical unit, he made a silent promise. No matter what had happened in the past, no matter what secrets Sarah held, he would be there for both of them from now on. Emily came back to his side, holding his hand tightly as they watched Sarah being taken away. Her small hand in his felt so right, so natural, as though it had always been meant to be that way. What now? Emily asked, looking at him with eyes full of hope and fear. Now we wait, Jack said, giving her hand a gentle squeeze, and we stay strong for Mommy. The first few hours of the surgery passed with no news. Jack and Emily remained in the private waiting room he had requested. The girl fell asleep on the sofa, exhausted from days of constant worry. Jack covered her with his jacket and sat in a nearby chair, occasionally checking his phone to distract himself with work emails. Then the phone rang. It was Robert, his personal assistant. Mr. Thompson, we looked into the medical records as requested. Mrs. Collins's blood type and tissue markers are in the national transplant system, but there are no compatible donors available right now. Jack closed his eyes, trying to keep frustration at bay. Keep looking. Contact private hospitals. Expand the search to Canada if necessary. When he hung up, he noticed Emily awake, watching him intently. Is Mommy okay? She asked, sitting up. No news yet, Jack replied, sitting beside her. These surgeries take a while. Emily nodded, hugging her knees. When Mommy gets really sick, I always tell her stories. It seems to help. What kind of stories? Happy ones, Emily smiled shyly. Like the day I was born. Mommy always says it was the happiest day of her life. Jack felt his chest tighten. She told you about that day? Lots of times. Emily settled in, as if preparing to tell a very important story. It was a winter night, December 15th. It was snowing a lot. Mommy said I was in a hurry to see the world because I arrived 3 weeks early. Jack did a quick mental calculation. If Emily was born on December 15th, that meant Sarah was already pregnant when she disappeared in April that year, exactly 9 months after their last time together in March. Mommy was alone, Emily continued, but she said a really nice nurse named Rosa held her hand the whole time. I was born at 3:27 in the morning, and Mommy says I cried so loud I woke all the babies in the nursery. Jack smiled, imagining the scene, feeling a deep ache for having missed it. So your birthday is coming up, he noted. Emily nodded. I'll be 6. Mommy promised we'd make a small cake just for us. She always saves up to buy me a present, even when money is tight. Just then, the waiting room door burst open. It was Dr. Chen, still in her surgical outfit, looking grave. Mr. Thompson, we're facing complications. Mrs. Collins's condition deteriorated drastically during the procedure. Her heart is reacting badly to the device implantation. Jack jumped to his feet. What does that mean? It means we need to adjust our approach. We're making modifications to the procedure, but it's critical. I need your authorization for more aggressive measures. Jack looked at Emily, who appeared small and frightened on the big sofa, then at the doctor. Do whatever it takes to save her. Dr. Chen nodded and hurried out, leaving them once again with uncertainty. Is she going to die? Emily's voice was so low Jack barely heard it. He knelt down in front of her, holding her little hands. No, Emily. Your mom is strong and the doctors here are the best. They're doing everything they can. But if she dies, what will happen to me? The girl's green eyes were full of fear. Will I go to an orphanage? No, Jack replied firmly. That's never going to happen. I promise you. Emily lowered her head, trying to be brave, but Jack could see her small shoulders trembling. He sat beside her and, hesitating only a moment, placed his arm around her. To his surprise, Emily leaned against him, accepting the comfort. Jack's phone rang again. It was his contact at the organ bank. Mr. Thompson, we found a potential donor match in Boston. It's preliminary, but the blood type and initial markers match. Jack felt a flicker of hope. How long until we confirm? A few hours for full typing. If compatibles, we can have the organ transported by private jet in under 2 hours. Make it happen, Jack ordered. Use my personal jet if you need to. Meanwhile, in the operating room, the medical team worked frantically to stabilize Sarah. Monitors beeped, orders were shouted, and Dr. Chen tried to maintain focus amid the chaos. Her blood pressure is dropping. We're losing her. Another unit of blood. Quick! Defibrillator ready. In the waiting room, Jack tried to distract Emily, but his mind was split between the little girl in front of him and the woman fighting for her life in the OR. When I'm scared, Mommy used to sing to me, Emily said suddenly. She has a beautiful voice. I remember, Jack said, smiling sadly. She sang in the university choir. She had the clearest voice I've ever heard. Emily looked surprised. You've heard Mommy sing? Many times. Jack drifted in memory for a moment. She sang when we studied, when we walked around campus, and when... He stopped, realizing he was revealing more than he intended. So you two were really good friends, Emily concluded. Jack nodded. Yes, we were. 2 more hours passed, each minute feeling like an eternity. Jack got another call. The heart in Boston was indeed compatible and was already being prepared for transport. When the door opened again, Dr. Chen stepped in, looking exhausted. Her face was tense, eyes serious. Jack stood up, bracing for the worst. We managed to stabilize her, the doctor said, and Jack felt his knees weaken with relief. The device is working for now. But it was close, very close. Is she going to be okay? Emily asked, running to Jack's side. Dr. Chen knelt to the child's level. Your mum is very strong, Emily. She fought hard today, but we're not out of danger yet. The next 48 hours are critical. Can I see her? Emily asked. Soon. She's in the ICU now, and we need to keep her sedated for a while. Jack placed a hand on Emily's shoulder. Good news, though. We found a matching heart in Boston. It's on the way. Dr. Chen looked surprised. How did you get that so fast? The waiting list. Let's just say I have connections, Jack interrupted. The important thing is, we have a real chance now. The doctor nodded, understanding there were some things she didn't need to know. If the heart arrives soon, we can proceed with the transplant as soon as she's stable enough, maybe in 2 or 3 days. While Dr. Chen explained the next steps, Jack watched Emily. The girl listened intently, nodding occasionally, showing a maturity far beyond her 5 years. He no longer had any doubt. This was his daughter, and he would do anything to protect her and her mother. Let's go see your mom now, Dr. Chen finally said, extending her hand to Emily. Together they walked toward the ICU, where Sarah hovered on the edge but was no longer alone. 2 days had passed since the surgery. Sarah had survived the procedure, but remained in critical condition in the ICU. The ventricular assist device kept her heart beating, but the battle was far from over. Jack had practically moved into the hospital. He slept on the couch in the room, worked on his laptop, and only left for important calls or to shower in a private suite he'd had arranged. Emily became a familiar presence to the nurses, who took turns keeping her occupied when Jack needed to handle work matters. On the morning of the 3rd day, Jack entered the ICU room and found Sarah awake. Her eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. Emily had gone with a nurse to have breakfast. Sarah, he called softly. She turned her head slowly, still weak. A small smile formed on her pale lips. Jack, she whispered hoarsely, you're still here. I'm not going anywhere, he said, sitting in the chair beside the bed. He looked emotionally exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and stubble on his chin. There was a long silence between them, heavy with unasked questions and answers delayed for years. We need to talk, Jack said finally, his tone gentle but firm. About Emily. Sarah closed her eyes briefly, as if gathering strength. You already know, don't you? I want to hear it from you, he insisted. Is Emily my daughter? A single tear rolled down Sarah's cheek. Yes, she confirmed. Emily is your daughter. Jack exhaled the breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Although he was almost certain, hearing the confirmation hit him like a wave. Why, Sarah? Why hide it from me? Why run away? I was scared, she answered, her voice barely audible. There were threats. Threats? From who? Unbeknownst to Sarah, Emily had returned from breakfast. The girl paused at the partially open door, listening. Your mother, Sarah managed, struggling to speak. Victoria came to me when she found out I was pregnant. She said I was ruining your future, that you had a legacy to fulfill. She paused to catch her breath. She offered money for me to have an abortion and disappear. Jack went pale. My mother did that. Sarah nodded weakly. When I refused, she threatened to take everything from me. Said she'd use the family's influence to destroy me, to make sure I never got a job, that I'd lose my scholarship. Why didn't you come to me? I would have protected you, Sarah. She said you already knew, that you agreed with everything. Sarah closed her eyes, the pain of the memory mixing with her physical pain. I was young, terrified, and alone. At the door, Emily stood, absorbing fragments of the truth, her childish mind trying to piece it together. I never knew, Jack said, holding Sarah's hand. I never knew about the pregnancy, never agreed to anything she did. I've spent years looking for you, Sarah. At that moment, Emily pushed the door open and stepped inside. Mommy? Both adults turned, startled. Sarah tried to sit up, alarmed. Emily, Jack said gently. You heard us talking. The girl nodded, her big eyes darting from one to the other. "Are you my dad, really?" The moment hung between them, filled with possibilities. Jack knelt to meet her eye to eye. "Yes, Emily. I'm your dad." Emily stood still for a moment, processing this. Then, to everyone's surprise, including her own, she ran into Jack's arms, hugging him tightly. "I always wanted a dad," she whispered. Jack hugged her back, tears burning at the corners of his eyes. He looked at Sarah, who was also crying silently. "I promise both of you," he said in a trembling voice. "I'll always protect you, and I'll fight to make you well, Sarah. The three of us will be a family." Sarah reached out her hand, and Jack moved closer to the bed, still holding Emily. The three of them were united by touch, separated by time, but brought back together by circumstance. Their moment was interrupted when Dr. Chen entered with a clipboard. Her usually serious face held a slight smile. "I have news," she announced. "The heart from Boston is a 100% match. We're getting everything ready for the transplant." Jack looked at Sarah, then at Emily, feeling the first genuine spark of hope in days. "When?" he asked. "Tomorrow morning," the doctor answered. "If all goes well, Sarah will have a new heart before noon." 2 days had passed since the surgery. Sarah had survived the procedure, but remained in critical condition in the ICU. The assist device continued to keep her heart beating, but the battle was still far from over. Jack had practically moved into the hospital. He slept on the couch in her room, worked on his laptop, and only stepped out for important phone calls or to shower in a private suite he'd arranged. Emily was a constant presence, with nurses taking turns keeping her occupied whenever Jack needed to handle business. On the morning of the 3rd day, Jack entered the ICU and found Sarah awake. Her eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. Emily had gone with a nurse to have breakfast. "Sarah," he called gently. She slowly turned her head, still weak. A small smile formed on her pale lips. "Jack," she whispered hoarsely. "You're still here." "I'm not going anywhere," he replied, sitting in the chair by the bed. He looked emotionally drained, with deep circles under his eyes and a faint beard. A long silence followed, filled with questions unasked and answers postponed for years. "We need to talk," Jack finally said, his tone kind but resolute. "About Emily." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering her strength. "You already know, don't you?" "I want to hear it from you," he insisted. "Is Emily my daughter?" A single tear rolled down Sarah's cheek. "Yes," she confirmed. "Emily is your daughter." Jack released the breath he didn't realize he was holding. Though he was almost certain hearing it firsthand still hit him hard. "Why, Sarah? Why didn't you tell me? Why did you vanish?" "It was complicated, Jack," she answered, her voice barely audible. "I had my reasons. We'll talk more about it another time." Jack wanted to press her, to ask more questions, but the exhaustion on her face stopped him. "All right," he agreed. "What matters is right now." Unbeknownst to Sarah, Emily had returned from breakfast. The girl paused at the partially open door, listening to their conversation. "I just want you to know I never forgot you," Jack said, taking Sarah's hand. "I spent years looking for you." Sarah closed her eyes, emotions mingling with physical exhaustion. "I never forgot you either." At the door, Emily stood quietly, absorbing what she'd just heard, her young mind trying to understand. At that moment, she pushed the door open and stepped into the room. "Mommy?" The two adults turned, startled. Sarah tried to sit up, alarmed. "Emily," Jack said gently. "You heard us talking." The girl nodded, her big eyes looking from one to the other. "Are you my dad, really?" The moment hovered, charged with possibility. Jack knelt to be at her eye level. "Yes, Emily, I'm your dad." Emily stood still for a second, processing the information. Then, surprising everyone, including herself, she ran into Jack's arms, hugging him tightly. "I always wanted a dad," she whispered. Jack returned her hug, tears burning his eyes. He looked at Sarah, who also wept silently. "I promise you both," he said, voice trembling. "I'll protect you always, and I'll fight for your health, Sarah. We'll finally be a family." Sarah reached out her hand, and Jack approached, still holding Emily. The three were brought together by that touch, a family separated by time, but reunited by fate. "There's a lot we need to discuss," Sarah said softly, "but now isn't the time." Jack nodded. The present and future mattered more than the past at this moment. Emily looked at her mother with concern. "You're going to get better, right, Mommy?" "I'll do my best, sweetheart," Sarah answered, running her fingers through her daughter's hair. The moment was interrupted when Dr. Chen entered with a clipboard. Her usually serious face held a slight smile. "I have news," she announced. "The heart from Boston is a perfect match. We're preparing everything for the transplant." Jack looked from Sarah to Emily, feeling the first real spark of hope in days. "When?" he asked. "Tomorrow morning," the doctor replied. "If all goes well, Sarah will have a new heart before noon." Emily's eyes went wide. "A new heart, like a present?" "Yes, sweetheart," Jack said, holding her little hand. "The best present your mum could get." Dr. Chen smiled at the newly reunited family. "I'll leave you alone now. Sarah, try to get as much rest as you can. Tomorrow is a big day." After the doctor left, the three stayed together, bound by the comfortable silence only a family can share, despite the unanswered questions still looming and the years lost. In that moment, there was only the relief of being together and the hope of a new beginning. The hospital buzzed with activity as preparations for the transplant got underway. Doctors came in and out of Sarah's room for final exams, nurses checked equipment, and Dr. Chen oversaw everything with a keen eye. "The heart is on its way," she informed Jack in the afternoon. "A specialized team is accompanying it on the jet. They'll arrive in 4 hours." Jack nodded, glancing at Sarah, who slept, sedated to rest before the big surgery. Emily was sitting in an armchair in the corner of the room, flipping through a children's book a nurse had given her. "I'll take Emily to the cafeteria," said Jack. "She needs a proper meal." In the cafeteria, as Emily chewed on a sandwich, Jack noticed how her little fingers clutched the book she had brought along. "You like to read," he commented. Emily nodded. "Mommy was teaching me the hard words." She turned the book to Jack. "Can you help me with this one?" Jack looked at the word she pointed to. "Extraordinary," he read. "It means something really special, out of the ordinary." "Like Mommy," Emily said confidently. "Yes," Jack agreed, feeling a lump in his throat. "Like your mom." In the next few minutes, Jack helped Emily with other difficult words. She was a quick learner, soaking up information like a sponge, bright and curious, just as he and Sarah had been in their youth. "You read very well for someone your age," he praised. "Your mum taught you well." "Mommy says reading is like traveling without leaving home," Emily said proudly. "We read together every night before bed. Well, almost every night. Except when she's working at the restaurant." Jack felt a pang of guilt, thinking about the struggles Sarah had faced alone all these years. "What's your dream, Emily?" he asked, wanting to know more about his daughter. The girl thought for a moment. "I want to be a doctor," she finally answered, "like Dr. Chen, so I can help people like Mommy." Jack smiled. "That's a wonderful dream. But sometimes I'm scared," Emily admitted, lowering her voice. "Of what?" "Of being alone. If Mommy—" She didn't finish, but she didn't have to. Jack took her little hands. "That won't happen. And even if she needs more time to recover, you will never be alone, I promise." Jack's phone rang, interrupting the moment. It was Robert and his assistant. "Mr. Thompson, the board is demanding your presence at an emergency meeting. They're threatening to vote on the Westridge acquisition without you." Jack frowned. The Westridge Technologies acquisition was a multi-billion-dollar project he had been planning for months. Under normal circumstances, he would attend without hesitation. "Tell them I can't be there. Set up a video conference if it's absolutely necessary." "Sir, they're putting a lot of pressure on us. Mr. Donovan suggested your personal drama is compromising the company's future." Jack felt anger flare. My personal drama is my family, Robert. The company will survive without me for a few days. He hung up to see Emily watching him with curious eyes. Trouble at work? She asked. Nothing important, he assured her. Just people who don't understand what really matters in life. Back in the room, they found Sarah awake again. Dr. Chen was at her side, going over final procedure details. There's been a small complication, the doctor explained when Jack entered. Boston's airport is having issues due to bad weather. The jet carrying the heart had to divert to a secondary airport. Will that cause a big delay? Jack asked, concerned. We're reorganizing the logistics, Dr. Chen replied, but time is critical. A heart can only survive 4 to 6 hours outside the body to be transplanted successfully. The news brought another wave of tension to the room. Sarah looked at Emily, who was perched at the foot of the bed, and then at Jack. Can I talk to you alone? She asked. Jack signaled to a nurse, who gently took Emily to see the hospital's playroom. Jack, Sarah began once they were alone. If something goes wrong, it's going to be fine, he interjected. We need to be realistic, she insisted. Promise you'll take care of Emily. Don't let her end up in the foster system or with some distant relative of mine. She's your daughter. I promise, Jack said solemnly, but you're going to pull through this. We're going to get a second chance. Sarah looked out the window, lost in memories. There were so many things Jack didn't know, so many lost moments. She recalled the night she discovered she was pregnant, the fear she felt, the tough decision to leave without a word. In the afternoon, Dr. Chen returned with more updates. The heart has arrived at the hospital, she announced. We're ready for the surgery. We'll be taking her to the operating room in an hour. Tension filled the room. Emily had returned and clung to her mother's hand, while Jack finalized details with the medical team. When the time came to wheel Sarah away, Emily hugged her mother tightly. I love you, Mommy, she whispered. When you come back, we'll really be a family. Sarah looked at Jack over her daughter's head, her eyes full of hope, fear, and an unspoken plea. Take care of our girl, she said, as orderlies prepared the gurney. No matter what happens. I promise, Jack said, holding her hand one last time. And you'll come back to us. As they watched Sarah being taken to the operating room, Jack felt Emily tremble beside him. He knelt down and looked into his daughter's eyes. Your mom is the strongest person I've ever known, he said. If anyone can get through this, it's her. Emily nodded, trying to be brave. Can we wait together? Of course, Jack replied, holding her hand. We'll wait together. As they walked toward the waiting area, Jack knew the next hours would be the longest of his life. The race against time had begun, and all he could do was wait, hoping and pray that he wouldn't lose Sarah again, now that he had finally found her. The following 2 weeks after the surgery were the most intense of Jack's life. Sarah had survived the transplant, but her recovery would be slow and delicate. Dr. Chen explained it would take months for her to fully regain her strength. Her body is accepting the new heart, the doctor reported during a routine visit, but rejection is still a risk. We need close monitoring. Jack completely reorganized his life. He set up a small office in Sarah's hospital room to work while she slept. He hired private tutors so Emily could start formal education. He bought an apartment near the hospital so the girl would have a comfortable place to sleep and play. Emily adapted surprisingly well to the new reality. Every morning, she woke up eager to visit her mom. In the afternoon, she enjoyed her lessons with the tutors, and at night, Jack took her home, where he read her stories until she fell asleep. I like when you use different voices for each character, Emily commented one night, snuggled under the blankets. Jack smiled, resting the book on his lap. My dad did that when I was little. It was my favorite part of the day. Mommy does voices too, but yours are funnier, Emily said, yawning. Jack felt a rush of gratitude for these small moments he was finally getting to experience. At the hospital, Sarah steadily regained her strength. Color returned to her cheeks, and she could sit up in bed for longer periods each day. Emily was her greatest motivation for recovery. "She's so happy," Sarah remarked one afternoon, watching Emily immersed in an educational game on the tablet Jack had bought. "I've never seen her like this before." Jack took a seat in the chair by the bed. "She's amazing, smart, curious, determined, just like you. And like you," Sarah added with a soft smile. "She has your focus when she's solving problems, and she definitely inherited your stubbornness." "My stubbornness?" Jack pretended to be offended. "Look who's talking." They both laughed, sharing a moment of lightness that seemed impossible just a few weeks prior. "Jack," Sarah said, turning serious, "when I'm discharged, we need to talk about everything. You deserve the whole story." 3 days later, Sarah was cleared to spend a few hours out of the hospital. Dr. Chen made it clear it was only a brief outing, with the condition that she return to sleep there. Jack took Sarah and Emily to the new apartment. After lunch, he hired a nanny to take Emily to the park, giving him and Sarah the privacy they needed. Once they were alone, Sarah sat on the couch, taking a deep breath. "I don't know where to start," she admitted. "From the beginning," Jack suggested, sitting beside her. "What happened after that night at the restaurant?" Sarah looked out the window, arranging her thoughts. "A week after that night, I found out I was pregnant. I was in shock. We'd been careful, but—" "Why didn't you tell me?" Jack asked without accusation, just wanting to understand. "I was going to," Sarah said. "I was just trying to process everything first. Then—" she hesitated. "Then I was approached by people claiming to act in your best interest. People connected to your family." Jack felt his stomach drop. "Who?" "At first it was just hints. Then a lawyer approached me on campus. She said your family had big plans for you, that I would be in the way." Sarah inhaled shakily. "When they found out about the pregnancy, the pressure increased." "My mother?" Jack closed his eyes, picturing the scenario. "Yes," Sarah confirmed. "Victoria eventually confronted me directly. She wasn't kind." "What did she say?" Jack's voice trembled with contained anger. "That I was ruining your future, that you had responsibilities to the company, to the family, that an unplanned child with a scholarship student who had no connections would compromise everything." Jack clenched his fists. "And you believed I agreed with that?" "Not at first," Sarah replied. "But Victoria was very convincing. She had documents in snippets of conversations taken out of context. She made it seem like you were just using me, temporarily." "I loved you, Sarah," Jack said, voice tight with emotion. "I was going to propose that night." "I know that now." Tears spilled onto Sarah's cheeks. "But then, I was young, afraid, pregnant, and facing one of the most powerful families in New York. They said they could destroy my career, do whatever it took to take the baby away once it was born." "So you ran," Sarah nodded. "I sold almost everything I had, transferred to a university out west, changed my name back to my mother's maiden name. I started over. Neither of them noticed that Emily had come back earlier. The nanny had to leave due to a family emergency and returned Emily to the apartment." The girl stopped at the living room door, listening quietly. "It was so hard, Jack," Sarah went on. "I had to give up my dream of becoming a university professor. I worked wherever I could, took night classes. When Emily was born, things got even more complicated, but every sacrifice was worth it for her." "Why didn't you try to find me later, when Emily was bigger?" Jack asked. "Fear," Sarah admitted. "Fear they'd try to take her from me. And as time passed, it felt too late. You moved on, became the successful businessman your family wanted." Jack shook his head, devastated. 6 lost years. I missed my daughter's birth, her first steps, her first words. "I'm so sorry," Sarah whispered. "I thought I was protecting Emily, and maybe you too, from having to choose between your family and us." Just then, Emily couldn't remain hidden any longer. She ran into the living room and threw herself into her mother's arms. "Mommy!" "You're crying!" Sarah hugged her, surprised. "You're back early, sweetheart. Where's Mrs. Page?" "She had to go. Her son got sick," Emily explained. then looked at Jack, who was trying to hide his own tears. "Are you two fighting?" "No, dear," Jack replied, moving closer. "We were just talking about the past." "About when I was a baby?" Emily asked. Sarah glanced at Jack. "Yes, about when you were a baby, and how your father and I met a long time ago. And about how we're going to be a family now," Jack added, determination clear in his voice. "No one and nothing will separate us again." Sarah noticed the change in Jack's tone. She recognized that expression. He had the same look when he was prepared to face any challenge. "What are you going to do?" she asked quietly, while Emily was distracted by a toy. "First, make sure you and Emily are protected and safe," he replied. "Then I'm going to have a serious conversation with my mother." Sarah squeezed his hand. "Jack, I don't want to cause conflict in your family." "You and Emily are my family," he stated, "and you deserve the truth, respect, and a place in my life. It's time for certain people to understand that." Emily came over, taking a hand from each of them. "Can we be happy ever after, like in stories?" Jack and Sarah exchanged a look, a silent promise passing between them. "We'll work hard for that, sweetheart," Sarah said, hugging her daughter. Jack wrapped his arms around them both, feeling at once furious about the past and hopeful about the future. A fresh start was possible, and the truth, painful as it was, had cleared the way. The next morning, Jack arrived at the imposing Thompson Enterprises building in Midtown Manhattan. The glass and steel skyscraper, with its 50 floors, symbolized the empire his family had built over generations. As he rode the private elevator to the top floor, he rehearsed the conversation he was about to have. Victoria Thompson's secretary looked stunned to see him. Jack rarely showed up unannounced, especially after weeks of absence. "Mr. Thompson, your mother is on a teleconference, but I can cancel it," Jack interrupted, walking straight toward the massive oak door. "She'll talk to me now." Without waiting for a reply, Jack opened the door. Victoria sat behind her enormous desk, phone in hand. At 60, she remained elegant and formidable, her graying hair perfectly styled, her suit impeccable. Her eyes narrowed at her son's arrival. "I'll call you back," she said into the phone before hanging up. "Jack, what a surprise. Finally remembered you have responsibilities here." "We need to talk," he said, shutting the door behind him. Victoria gestured for him to sit, but he stayed standing. "I found Sarah," he announced, watching his mother's reaction closely. A fleeting flicker of surprise crossed Victoria's eyes, confirming everything. She quickly composed herself, smoothing a non-existent crease in her sleeve. "Sarah Montgomery, that girl from college. How unexpected. How is she?" "You know exactly how she's been," Jack answered, his voice dangerously calm, "or how she was, until recently. Struggling to survive and raising our daughter alone." Victoria froze. "Daughter? Don't pretend to be shocked, Mother. I know what you did." Jack stepped up to the desk. "I know you discovered the pregnancy. I know you pressured her, threatened her, made her run." Victoria rose slowly. "Jack, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You decided she wasn't good enough for me, that our child wasn't part of your perfect plan for the Thompson future. I was protecting you, protecting everything this family has worked for." Victoria's voice grew louder. "You were young, impulsive, about to take over the company. A rushed marriage to a girl with no connections, a baby you didn't plan." "A girl with no connections?" Jack let out a humorless laugh. "Sarah was brilliant, graduated with honors, on a full scholarship. And Emily, our daughter, is extraordinary. You stole 6 years of her life from me." Victoria moved around the desk, approaching her son. "What's done is done. Now we have to manage the situation. We can offer a generous arrangement, ensure the child gets a good education, maybe even—" "There is no situation to manage," Jack cut her off, stepping back. "She's my family, not a corporate problem. Don't be naive. You have responsibilities here and a reputation. The board won't react well to a family scandal. We can find a middle ground." Jack shook his head. looking at his mother as though seeing her for the first time. "You really don't get it, do you? There's no middle ground. Sarah almost died. Emily almost lost her mother. And I lost 6 years with my daughter that I will never get back. Jack, be reasonable. Reasonable. Was it reasonable to lie to Sarah? Make her believe I didn't want her? Was it reasonable to rob a child of her father?" Jack took a deep breath, trying to keep his fury under control. "You know what I've learned these past few weeks, Mother? That there are things more important than this company, than the Thompson name, than all of this." He gestured to the luxurious office. "You won't throw it all away for a youthful mistake," Victoria declared, her voice turning icy. "Not after all I've done to secure your place here." "A youthful mistake," Jack echoed, incredulous. "My daughter is not a mistake. And as for my place, maybe I don't want it anymore. Not if it means being like you." Victoria paled. "Don't be dramatic. The company needs you." "I need you. You should have considered that before you tore my family apart." Jack headed for the door, then turned back one last time. "I'm stepping down as CEO, effective immediately. The board can appoint an interim until I decide what's next." "You can't do that." "I just did. My letter of resignation will be delivered today. And as for us," Jack looked his mother in the eye, "I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive what you did. Jack, please." "Goodbye, Mother." Jack left the office feeling as though a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. In the elevator, he texted his lawyer instructing him on the resignation procedures. As the elevator descended, Jack took one last look at the Thompson Enterprises logo. One chapter of his life was ending, but a far more meaningful one was about to begin. Back at the hospital, Sarah noticed immediately that something had changed the moment Jack walked into the room. He seemed lighter, despite the obvious emotional toll. "Shall you talk to her?" Sarah said, not asking but stating. Jack nodded, taking a seat by her bed. Emily was in the hospital playroom, joining an activity with other children. "How did it go?" "Hard," he admitted, "but necessary." "I'm sorry to be the cause of this conflict between you two," Sarah said, squeezing his hand. "You caused nothing," Jack replied firmly. "Her choices caused this, and now I've made mine." "What do you mean?" she asked. "I stepped away from the company," he revealed. "At least for now. I need to rethink a lot of things, including whether I still want to be at Thompson Enterprises." Sarah's eyes widened. "Jack, that's your family's company, your legacy. My legacy now is Emily," he said simply. "And maybe us." A silence, laden with possibilities, settled between them. Emily bounded in just then, running over with a drawing in her hand. "Look what I made. It's the three of us." Jack and Sarah examined the childlike sketch. 3 stick figures, one tall one in a tie, another with long hair, and a small one in between, all holding hands under a bright yellow sun. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Sarah said, pulling her daughter close. "We have to talk about the future," Jack said, looking at them both. "When you're discharged, Sarah, we need to decide how our lives will be." "Will we live together?" Emily asked hopefully. "Like a normal family?" Jack looked at Sarah, letting her take the lead on that question. "One step at a time," Sarah answered gently. "First, I need to fully recover. Then we can figure it out." "I bought a house," Jack said. "Not far from here. It has a big yard, space for Emily to play, and an office you can use when you're ready. There's a separate suite so you can have your own privacy." Sarah looked surprised. "You've planned all of this?" "Not all," Jack corrected her. "Just enough to offer security and comfort to you both. The rest, we'll figure out together, as a family." "And the company?" Sarah asked. "I'm thinking of shifting the business's direction," Jack explained. "Implementing more ethical policies, focusing on sustainable projects, using the company's resources to make a real difference, and having more time for the two of you." Emily, not fully grasping the adult's conversation, smiled anyway, sensing the happiness on her mom's face. "I like your plan," Sarah finally said. "One step at a time." Jack extended his hands, taking Sarah's and Emily's. "One day at a time. Together." Emily looked from one to the other, her eyes shining with hope. "Does that mean I get my own room?" Jack and Sarah burst out laughing, the day's tension dissipating with the little girl's innocent question. The future was full of uncertainties, but one thing was clear. They would face it side by side. "All set to go home?" Jack asked, entering Sarah's hospital room with a bouquet of wildflowers. Sarah smiled, sitting on the bed dressed in normal clothes for the first time in weeks. "I can't believe this day has finally come." After a month in the hospital and 2 more weeks of tests and prep, Dr. Chen had finally approved Sarah's discharge. The list of medical recommendations was extensive: immunosuppressants, weekly hospital checkups, strict rest, and moderate physical activity under professional guidance. "Where's Emily?" Sarah asked, taking the flowers. "She's with Robert, my assistant. They're waiting in the car." "She wanted to surprise you." A nurse came in with a wheelchair, standard procedure for discharge. Sarah made a face, but Jack helped her sit. "Just till we reach the car," he assured her. "Then you can show everyone how strong you are now." On the way through the corridors, several staff members stopped to say goodbye. Dr. Chen waited at the reception desk with a folder. "Remember, any new symptom, even minor, call us immediately," the doctor instructed, handing over a folder of paperwork. "And no overexertion. Your recovery will be gradual." "Thank you for everything, Doctor," Sarah said, squeezing her hand. "I owe you my life." "Just make it worth it," Dr. Chen replied with a rare smile. "And bring Emily to visit me sometimes. That girl has a future in medicine." The car awaited at the entrance, a comfortable, spacious SUV. As Sarah approached, the back door opened and Emily jumped out, holding a colorful sign that read, "Welcome home, Mommy." "Surprise!" the girl shouted, running to carefully hug Sarah. The ride to the new house was filled with excitement. Emily pointed out everything she saw through the windows, while Sarah, tired but happy, watched her daughter with a grateful smile. Jack drove, occasionally checking the rearview mirror to look at them both. The house stood in a quiet neighborhood on the city's outskirts, lined with trees and neatly kept lawns. When the car stopped in the driveway, Sarah admired the red brick structure with its wide porches and a stone path winding through the front garden. "It's beautiful," she murmured. "Wait until you see inside," Emily exclaimed, practically vibrating with excitement. Jack helped Sarah out of the car. A discreet ramp had been installed beside the front steps, adapted for her temporary needs. As soon as they entered, Emily took on the role of tour guide. "This is the living room, and over there is the dining room with a table for 6. Look at the kitchen, Mommy, it has a huge island." Sarah followed slowly, leaning on Jack, amazed by the warm, elegant space. Comfortable furniture, neutral colors, large windows letting in plenty of natural light. Everything had been thoughtfully chosen for a serene environment. "Come see my room," Emily insisted, pulling them down the hallway. Emily's bedroom was every child's dream. Soft green walls, a canopy bed, shelves full of books, and a study desk under the window overlooking the backyard. "I've never had a room all to myself before." Emily spun around, arms wide. "There's even a huge closet." Sarah felt tears in her eyes, seeing her daughter's joy. For years, they'd shared a pull-out couch in a tiny apartment. Now Emily had her own space, and it overwhelmed Sarah with gratitude. "And now your room," Jack said, guiding Sarah to the end of the corridor. The master suite was spacious and calm, featuring a king-size bed and French doors opening to a small balcony. A cozy sofa occupied one corner, next to a bookshelf. "The bathroom is adapted," Jack explained, showing her the grab bars and shower seat. "And here." He opened a side door. "A small office for when you want to work or have some quiet time." Sarah looked around, too emotional to speak. Jack watched her closely. "Is it too much?" he asked, concerned. "We can change anything." "It's perfect," she finally said. "I'm just trying to believe it's real." The first weeks in the new house brought constant adjustments. Jack hired a daytime nurse to help Sarah, plus a housekeeper to manage the place. Emily started with private tutors 3 times a week to prepare for enrolling in school next semester. Jack split his time between the office and home. At the company, he faced strong resistance to the changes he wanted to implement. The board, led by Victoria's allies, questioned every new ethical policy and every attempt to pivot the business towards sustainability. "I can't believe they're blocking the renewable energy project," he vented to Sarah one evening after Emily was in bed. "It's like they'd rather have easy profit than do the right thing." "Change takes time," Sarah said, working on her physical therapy exercises on the couch, especially when it involves deep-rooted values. Sarah was improving slowly. Each morning, she followed a strict schedule of light exercises. 3 times a week, a physical therapist came to the house for more intense sessions. Every small victory, climbing the stairs without resting, cooking a simple meal, walking around the yard, was celebrated. "Today, I read 3 books to Emily at bedtime," Sarah said proudly one evening. "Last month, I could barely finish one." Jack was also quickly learning the challenges of parenthood, from making breakfast while Emily searched for matching socks to helping with her math homework or comforting her after a bad dream. Each day brought new lessons. "How do women do it?" he asked Sarah after a particularly chaotic afternoon. When Emily spilled paint all over the kitchen during an art project, Sarah laughed. "One day at a time, and we don't always do it right." Gradually, they established a routine. Family breakfasts before Jack went to the office, Emily's tutoring sessions in the morning, creative projects in the afternoon, Sarah steadily increasing her activities, family dinners where they shared their day's adventures. On weekends, they explored the property. The backyard had a small creek and trees perfect for Emily to climb under careful supervision. Jack put up a swing and planned to build a treehouse once Sarah felt well enough to help. At night, after Emily was asleep, Jack and Sarah talked for hours, relearning each other, sharing lost years, and dreaming of the future. Their relationship, paused 6 years ago, blossomed anew, more mature, thoughtful, founded on respect and the love they shared for Emily. "I never thought we'd get a second chance," Sarah confessed one evening, watching the stars from the balcony. Jack took her hand, gently caressing it. "Me neither. But I promise not to waste it." Their new path wasn't without challenges or tough moments, but they were walking it together, finally as the family they were always meant to be. A year passed since the transplant, transforming the family's life in unimaginable ways. The seasons changed, each bringing new discoveries and small triumphs. Spring saw Sarah's first long walks in the garden. Summer, her first laps in the pool. Fall, her gradual return to normal routines. And winter, the comforting feeling that the worst was behind them. Sarah, now fully recovered, discovered a new vocation within Thompson Enterprises. She started as a part-time consultant in the corporate social responsibility department, but her knack for management and unique perspective on real community needs quickly made her stand out. "Your proposal for the public school project was unanimously approved," Jack announced one morning, walking into the kitchen where Sarah was making breakfast. "Unanimously? Even old Donovan agreed?" Sarah asked in surprise, serving Emily some pancakes. "He said it's the most sensible idea he's heard in years," Jack replied, kissing her forehead. "I believe his exact words were, 'This woman knows more about purposeful efficiency than our entire strategy department.'" In just 6 months, Sarah was promoted to Director of Social Projects. 2 months later, when the Vice President of Operations announced his retirement, Jack nominated her for the role. "She doesn't have enough corporate experience," argued one of the older board members. "Sarah turned our least profitable department into our most impactful and visible one," Jack countered, "and her projects cost half of what we used to spend with triple the results." To the surprise of many, the board approved Sarah as the new vice president. Her first action in that position was to launch support programs for families of cardiac patients, building a support network that would have made all the difference during her own ordeal years before. Emily Hutt, meanwhile, thrived at school. After a rocky start, facing intrusive questions about her family's story and overcoming her natural shyness, she found her stride by helping classmates who struggled. Her teacher described her as an old soul in a child's body, admired for her maturity and compassion. "Mom, can I bring my science project today, Mrs. Miller said I can present it to the other classes." Emily ran into the kitchen, already in her school uniform, her hair in a braid Jack had learned to do from online tutorials. "Of course, sweetheart. It's in the car," he replied, proud. The project was a model of the human heart, meticulously built with help from Dr. Chen, who had spent an entire afternoon explaining to Emily how the transplant that saved her mother had worked. The model took first place in the school science fair and would be displayed at the City Museum for a month. An unexpected surprise occurred on the night of the science fair awards ceremony. Victoria Thompson showed up at the school. Jack was momentarily speechless to see his mother seated discreetly in the last row of the auditorium. "Mother, what are you doing here?" Victoria looked uneasy, but maintained her elegant posture. "I thought I should properly meet my granddaughter. Your assistant mentioned the event." When Emily walked on stage to receive her award, Victoria watched intently. Jack noticed something unusual in his mother's eyes, a flicker of pride, maybe even regret. "She has your eyes," Victoria said quietly, "and your determination." After the ceremony, Victoria asked to speak with Jack in private. In a quiet corner of the school, she dropped her facade of perfection. "I made a terrible mistake, Jack," she admitted, her voice trembling. "When I learned Sarah was pregnant, I acted out of fear of losing you, fear our plans for your future would collapse." Jack remained silent, surprised by the vulnerability he'd never seen in her. "I was wrong," Victoria continued. "Seeing Emily today, I realize how much you lost because of me, how much we all lost." She took a deep breath. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I ask for a chance to know my granddaughter, and maybe one day make amends for what I did." Jack truly looked at his mother, really looked, for perhaps the first time in years. He saw not just a powerful, iron-fisted woman, but a person who, like everyone else, had made mistakes and now sought redemption. "It won't be easy," he finally said. "There's a lot of hurt, many lost years." "I'm willing to try," Victoria replied, "for as long as it takes." The first meeting between Victoria and Emily was carefully arranged, a Sunday lunch in Jack and Sarah's garden. Emily, ever open-hearted, surprised everyone with how quickly she accepted her grandmother. "Daddy has a picture of you in his office," Emily said. "You look nicer in person." Victoria, startled by the child's bluntness, laughed genuinely, a sound Jack hadn't heard in years. "I can be quite intimidating in photos, I suppose." Over the following weeks, Victoria made consistent efforts to reconnect with the family. She visited regularly, bringing meaningful gifts rather than expensive items. Science books for Emily, mementos from Jack's youth, and, surprisingly, a collection of rare Shakespeare works for Sarah. "It was my secret hobby in college," Sarah said upon receiving the gift. "How did you know?" Victoria glanced at Jack, then back at Sarah. "I had a private investigator find you years ago, back when Jack was still searching for you. I learned a lot about you, but used that information the wrong way. I hope now I can use it to truly know you." As Jack and Sarah's bond grew, talk of marriage arose naturally. It was during a simple family dinner that Jack proposed, with Emily as an eager accomplice. "Mom, there's a special dessert tonight," Emily announced, solemnly bringing a small blue velvet box on a plate. Sarah looked from Emily to Jack, who knelt beside the table. "Sarah Collins, will you do me the honor of officially becoming the family Emily has always known we should be?" "Say yes, Mom," Emily exclaimed, unable to contain her excitement. Amid tears and laughter, Sarah accepted, and the three embraced, finally a complete family. Planning the wedding occupied the following months. Emily took charge as the head organizer, insisting on lilac flowers, like the ones on the college campus when her parents met. To everyone's surprise, Victoria offered her help without pushing her own preferences, simply supporting the family's choices. "It's your day," she told Jack and Sarah. "I just want to be part of it, if you'll let me." On the wedding day, Victoria arrived early, bringing a gift for Sarah, a delicate pearl bracelet that had belonged to her own mother. "In our family, we pass this to the bride on the eve of the wedding," she explained. "It's a tradition that goes back 4 generations. I'd like you to have it." Sarah hesitated only a moment before accepting the gift and the hug Victoria offered, the first between them. "Thank you for welcoming her into our family," Victoria whispered. The garden ceremony was simple and moving. Emily, radiant in her flower girl dress, scattered petals along the path. Victoria sat in the front row, visibly emotional as Jack and Sarah exchanged vows. During the reception, Sarah pulled Jack aside to a quiet spot. "I have a wedding present for you," she said, eyes shining. "I thought we agreed no gifts," Jack replied, intrigued. "I couldn't help this one." Sarah took his hand and placed it on her abdomen. "In about 7 months, Emily will have a baby brother or sister." The news of the pregnancy was met with universal joy, especially from Victoria, who immediately offered to help prepare for the baby. "If you'll let me, I'd like to be present in this child's life from the start," she said. "Our second chance to do things right." 8 months later, when Thomas James Thompson was born, Victoria was at the hospital, waiting patiently with Emily, while Jack stayed with Sarah in the delivery room. When the nurse brought Emily in to meet her brother, Victoria hung back, unsure. "Come on, Grandma," Emily called, reaching out her hand. "So you're part of the family, too." Victoria took her granddaughter's hand, a tear rolling down her usually stoic face. "Thank you," she whispered, not only to Emily, but to the entire family that had found the strength to forgive. 1 year after Thomas's birth, the red brick house was bustling with people for a Sunday barbecue. Sarah, now executive vice president of Thompson Enterprises, discussed new projects with colleagues while watching Jack play with Thomas on the lawn. Emily, almost 9 now, proudly showed her new set of medical books to Dr. Chen, who had become a regular visitor. Victoria arrived with dessert, smiling as she saw Emily run toward her. "Grandma, I have something to show you." The girl pulled Victoria over to see a family album she was putting together, where old photos of her parents in college now shared space with recent pictures of the whole family together. Observing, Sarah approached Jack and took his hand. "Did you ever imagine we'd get this far?" she asked. Jack smiled, looking at his mother and daughter laughing together. His little son taking his first steps on the grass, and the woman he had always loved, even when it seemed impossible. "I think Emily always knew," he said, "that in the end, love is stronger than all obstacles." And as the sun set over the gathered family, it seemed little Emily had been right all along. Second chances do exist. Forgiveness is possible, and love, when true, always finds its way back home.